You heard what Karti Chidambaram said and the issue he raised in Parliament. So if you have a credit card or a loan EMI, this will matter to you. The debate now on whether there is need for more transparency as far as the Credit Information Bureau India score and how it is calculated is done, or whether just one needs to be more aware and really monitor their financials better, and most importantly for all our viewers, what you must know about your CIBIL score. So what is a CIBIL score? For those wondering, sitting at home saying, okay, what is this really? What determines how I get a loan or I do not? Well, this score, it really determines your chances of a loan approval. As explained, the score ranges from 300 to 900. The higher the score, the more it reflects your good credit management, really. That is the crux of the matter. But how is the CIBIL score calculated? That really, remember, is the area of debate. Well, there is a complex algorithm really based on key factors such as your payment history, your credit utilization ratio, the duration of your credit history, what type of credit you are taking, past repayment behavior of a customer or a client. And remember, this applies to not just personal EMIs, but also commercial EMIs as far as MSMEs are concerned. New credit applications. So that really is how this is calculated. And how can you improve your CIBIL score? If you're sitting and saying, okay, hang on, how can I improve my CIBIL score? Well, paying your EMIs and credit card bills on time, reviewing your credit card history, your credit history consistently really, ensuring a healthy mix of secured and unsecured loans, monitoring all your accounts regularly. Well, that really is the basic structure of the CIBIL score and how it must be looked into. But I'm joined by senior business economist Sanchita Mukherjee and Rajat Gulati, the co-founder of Pluto's One, for a detailed discussion really on whether there is really the need for more transparency or just more awareness and regular monitoring really. Sanchita, first to you. People's loans really, their EMIs depend on their CIBIL scores altogether. For those wondering, do they really need to be concerned about how the score is calculated? What would you say?
No, I don't think they should be concerned. In fact, it is an approach which encourages every consumer to be more cautious about their financial approach and also to have a very, very persistent and a very confident view of their own financial history. I think it's a very good thing. And rather than just talking about only CIBIL, in fact, there are 4 other credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, CRF, Highmark, and CIBIL, which is owned by TransUnion. World over, credit bureaus do a fabulous job in maintaining a financial payment history, a credit history, and all of that. And within India, we have something which is also looked upon by the regulator, which is known as the CIR, which is known as the Credit Information Report. Now, this Credit Information Report is also very, very significant because when it comes to agricultural loans, in terms of whether or not to go for an interest rate subvention, doubling of agricultural credit, repayment history, the CIR is also something which is very, very effective. So I think overall for a consumer who is looking at a CIBIL score, it's important to track your own financial history regularly, see if there are any changes at all, if there are any late payment fees which is affecting the score, or interest subvention or an EMI issue. One needs to approach the financial institution which is from which the loan is availed from, say a bank, and ensure that the CIBIL score is corrected at a regular duration.
Right, Rajat, do you agree? Do you believe there is really a need for more transparency in the system altogether? Or do you feel, look, people just need to be made more aware and need to monitor their financials better?
I don't think it's any either or. I think it's both. I do think there needs to be more transparency, primarily because we're still a low credit penetration society. That's one. So there are a lot of new to credit customers for whom a factor that has a large weightage like your credit history is just not something that helps with their score. So when they go to apply for new credit, since they don't already have credit, it's something that hurts their score and they're less likely to get credit or get credit at good terms. So unless there is more transparency about it, it's hard for the consumer, the applicant, to actually understand how their application is going to be processed. But understandably, there is an opposing force there, that if you make this completely transparent, then there are players out there who will hack the scoring mechanism and try and game the system. I think one very important thing is that there is a lot of concern around security around this, right? So, with low financial literacy, with low digital literacy, comes the risk of someone stealing your identity, someone making a man in the middle sort of attack, and hijacking your CIBIL score, hijacking your report, and something like a hard query. So, right, one factor is if multiple hard queries when you're applying for loans, etc., are made to the system, your score falls. And there has only been estimation to this, but three hard queries could hit your score by as much as 100 points in this, right? And if you didn't do this, if your identity got hijacked, there's no recourse around this. So the transparency helps with understanding how it happened, tracing it back to the individual events that affected the score, and then being able to have some recourse around it, which is why I think transparency is important. But like Ms. Mukherjee said, there are multiple options here. I think one thing that must be understood is there has been talk of the NPCI creating something called a digital payment score, which I think we should talk about, because that is something that I think will be much more effective, especially for the kind of credit that is being applied for and the kind of people who are applying for the credit right now.
Right. Sanchita, for those wondering how to complain or raise their concerns, then that really is coming up as one of the key concerns as far as viewers are concerned. What would you say?
I completely agree with Mr. Gulati. In fact, in terms of right now where the situation stands at, I think a lot of consumers have to approach their respective financial institution to have the score corrected if there is an issue. Say if there's a late payment or an EMI bounce, or if the interest rate has been reset and there is a problem with the calculation, the consumer himself or herself has to be aware. Of course, CIBIL does send you emails at regular intervals if there is a change, or if someone is trying to access, a financial institution is trying to access your score, you immediately get a pop-up in your inbox saying that your CIBIL score has been accessed. So it's up to the individual to actually monitor on a regular basis and approach the financial institution himself or herself for a correction. This, I think, can be tackled more effectively in terms of having a more seamless interaction or an interface, because right now, everything is digital. What he rightly mentioned, if you have a digital score, and there's so much of digitization which has already happened vis-a-vis the UPI interface that we have in India, I think a seamless interface between the bank, financial institution, and the consumer in terms of resetting the CIBIL score to be more transparent and effective is useful. Having said that, the CIBIL score by itself is extremely comprehensive. If a consumer bothers to actually open it, you'd actually see the entire, your ratio between even secured and unsecured, how much of a home loan you have, auto loan you have, credit card, personal loan, what is the ratio, how it is affecting your score. All of that is explained and more in the report.
Right. Rajat, do you agree? And for viewers really and consumers at large, really divided. Some believing, yes, there is need for a more seamless approach, as Sanchita was just explaining. Some also saying, as also Sanchita was explaining, that look, there is enough data and more, and your CIBIL score data is just a click away on any app today. What would you really say is the need of the hour?
So I would say that it's even the CIBIL score is a product of its times, right? It was introduced when the credit demand was for actually large ticket credit, and the only kind of credit history that a lot of consumers had was when they applied for home loans, and then personal loans got added to the mix. So it started as an aggregate score, and they've had to add more granularity to it as time has gone on. So it's become more finessed, but it will always be something that started with large credit transactions as the base for calculation. And therefore, it, in my opinion, favors people who have long-standing credit histories, who have credit in their names, secure and unsecured both. But in a country where most people, most companies still don't have access to credit, it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of deciding whether credit is to be given to somebody or not. So for the top end, for a lot of your listeners, I think CIBIL is doing a great job with the credit rating that they're doing, and it will be more than enough to serve their purposes. But as the economy grows, as the reach of digital and the reach of credit access grows, There have to be other solutions that are built up more from the ground up than from top down. In my view, CIBIL remains a top down score. You're going to have to build up ground up scores, and that's where the digital payment score comes in. For someone who's doing their first transactions on UPI, they're doing P2P transactions, they're doing small P2M transactions. For those kind of people, a new kind of scoring mechanism is needed, and that's where the DPS, the digital payment score, comes in. But yes, for most of the people who would be like me, like you, I suspect CIBIL is a good enough score right now. That said, it's always better to ask for more transparency. Some of the points Mr. Chidambaram raised, like a delay in actually the ratings in the scoring being done, right? No recourse, this being handled by a private agency. If there is an oligopoly there, if there is no transparency in how the rating is done, because all that we know about the CIBIL score is actually how we look at the data and its effect on our CIBIL scores, and then we're able to sort of deduce how the score is made. There's no actual, it doesn't actually lay out the hierarchy, the metrics there, the heuristics for the scoring.
Okay. All right. So point taken there, both of you saying that CIBIL is doing enough and more, but really the need to continue to evolve as we, of course, move to a more digitalized economy. Thank you both for sharing your thoughts.